We've got another great story to share with you today, an inspiring journey into local government leadership, because that's what we do here on the HaltingWinter podcast. We tell the stories behind the titles, the unique paths into public service, and the moments that shape how these leaders show up, even when the work gets heavy. Every day, local government quietly makes modern life possible, and behind every service is a person doing work that often goes unseen. This is the HaltingWinter podcast, and I'm Seth Winterhalter. Every week, I have the pleasure of sitting down with local government leaders from across the country that remind us where government really lives, locally, doing the work that truly matters. This is the work that builds belonging. Before we hear today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Tyler Technologies has been exclusively serving the public sector since 1998, partnering with cities and counties to make their work more manageable, more connected, and more effective. From smarter budgeting to artificial intelligence, Tyler equips local governments with software and solutions that help leaders serve with clarity, efficiency, and impact. You can explore a variety of free resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. And if today's conversation resonates with you, I want to invite you to check out the Municipal Leadership Development Circle. It's a global community of local government leaders who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of municipal pressure. You can learn more about the MLDC at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. And now, let's turn to today's conversation. My guest on the podcast today is Travis Coenen, Village Administrator in Wrightstown, Wisconsin. Looking forward to coming out to Wisconsin. And as Travis, you've already told me, it's a little bit warmer today than it was a few weeks ago, -40. I can't even imagine. But Travis, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Seth. It's great to be here for sure.
It's going to be great to be out. In fact, by the time this airs, I will have already been out to the WCMA. It's the Wisconsin City County Management Association Winter Conference. We've had a number of guests on from Wisconsin over the last few weeks. Andy Peterson, Steve Volker, Jesse Ties just this week. And last year, we had Rebecca Hausman, Stephanie Hirsch, Rebecca Grill. So excited to meet all of these podcast guests face to face, but encourage if you're listening today and maybe you saw me speak at the Wisconsin conference, make sure to go back and listen to those. I love that we get to unpack, and kind of learn the unique kind of paths and stories about our colleagues. And so I look forward to hearing all about what's going on in Wrightstown. But before we do that, Travis, take us back to the beginning and tell us about where you were born and kind of the childhood that shaped you and led you on this unique path.
Yeah, so truly, it's kind of a unique probably to most of your people on podcast, but I was born here in Wrightstown with the Wrightstown schools, went to a Catholic school for grade school here in Wrightstown, and then the Wrightstown High School. Grew up with two very hardworking family members, I'll say middle class, mom and dad. Both my dad was a paper mill worker. Paper industry is huge in our area. My mom kind of hit different jobs along the way. She was taking care of us as we were young. I played baseball, football, wrestled since I was in kindergarten. So liked a lot of sports, did a lot of different things. Very involved with my family. My family members were very involved in the community. My dad was actually on the village board at one point, part of the in charge of public safety at that point. He taught us a lot about hard work and giving back to your community. So he was part of a lot of different organizations, from the church to helping out at different celebrations and Lions Club and all those type of things, right? So community involvement was huge. And as kids, we were there helping with them a lot. When I was in school, my grandpa and my dad were firemen, volunteer firemen on a fire department here in Wrightstown, and kind of thought that was a path at some point. But as I was going to school, it was firefighting. And then I was also, while I was a junior, I was taking classes at NWTC for architecture and drafting, and won some awards for some of my house plans and different things. I really thought that was going to be a path of where I was going. So after school, high school, I went to school and It's probably not even on my resume per se, but got my architectural associate's degree, doing some drafting. Um, and I thought that was going to be a path. And as I was out on a job site one day, um, I knew I really didn't want to go work in the paper mill where my dad did. As I was on a job site, I got contacted by a contractor, really just saying, you're a pretty smart, hardworking guy. Like, I think you should come work for us. And it was for a utility contractor, local utility contractor in the area. So I started working there, moved on to a more diverse position. I worked with Michaels for a corporation for a while and did some work with them and kind of that job. They are an amazing company that's truly international, and but all over the country. So we traveled a lot. And with that, I did some project management training and did a lot of different things there. Really worked in all types of utility construction from the roads to pipelines, for gas and oil to some of the electrical and technology phone lines, internet lines, type things with borings. And as I met my wife's dad traveled quite a bit. Didn't think there was necessarily a spot for our family. So as we were thinking about family, I started looking locally again, worked for some local utility contractors, and actually that's when she said, for the government. She's like, you're always doing so much for the community already. Why don't you, look for jobs in the government sector? So, a job in the engineering department or street department in De Pere opened up, and because of the time frame it was 2007, 8, things were tight on everywhere, and truly, I went from engineering to driving the garbage truck in De Pere. Um, so and again, there was some challenges to taking that role from the private sector where I was at the public, financially. It was pretty tough, but I was home. We were able to have kids. We had good benefits coming up for growing a family. That's a good thing too, right? And the peer kind of started my path, and I just met a lot of people that were so passionate about providing for their community that I'm like, maybe this is the direction that goes. Um, Living in Wrightstown at the time, I saw an ad that came up for a wastewater operator in the village of Wrightstown. Applied for that position. Um, the wastewater operator that was there at that time with the backup wastewater operator said, "Man, you got a road ahead of you. You got to get all your wastewater licenses and certifications, right?" And he was working at him for 10, 15 years and maybe probably not provided the right resources to be successful, but he was saying it was pretty tough. In about 3 years, I had my advanced water and wastewater licensing and my water licensing distribution system, and was kind of moving along in the group within a year. Those first 3 years of the director was really involving me, allowing me to innovate and problem solve for him. The little community we're in, although they were in somewhat great shape financially, they were struggling. There was a lot of improvements that got pushed off for a long time. And truly around the 2008 time and even the early 90s, they replaced a lot of infrastructure. We put in a new wastewater plant, and the utilities on the utility side, both were struggling financially, and truly both in the red, looking for ways to get out there, and rates were already high, trying to figure out different things. Around 2011, the director of public works said that, this is where kind of a unique story where how I'm still in government, I'm not quite sure, but um, the director said, I'm going to be, I want to move along. I got higher aspirations. I'll look for a bigger community to be director of public works and all those things. He's like, but truly, he's like, you've been doing such an amazing job. I'd really think it's something you should go for. Um, so at that point, I put my name in for the director of public works as he said he was moving on. And the administrator at that time said, Trav, you won't even make the interview process. So I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. I've done a pretty good job in this department, but we'll see. But I'll apply anyway, right? So did what I needed to do, got through the application, and then applied for the director of public works job. got it in 2007 or 12, 11, 12, and decided I was going to go back to school for some things. And really one of the things that was, I'll say a struggle in the village of Wrightstown was just, the community understanding engineering, right? So went back got a civil engineering and survey degree, which I was going to complete my engineering, but it ended with an associate's degree. Um, and in roughly about 4 years' time, me and the amazing team that I was able to form in the Public Works and Utilities Department, along with some definite collaboration with the board, we were able to turn both utilities around back to the black in about 4 years and really turn around some resources that were amazing and cut budget while supplying more services to the community. So it was pretty amazing. In 2014, that same administrator that said I wasn't going to hit the interview process um, was going through some challenges, life-threatening challenges medically, and then his wife actually came down with terminal cancer. So there was about a time period from about 2013 to the time when I took the position in 2016. I was actually doing the director of public works job and the administrator job, to cover both for the community. And as we moved through that, we did a lot of different things. And one of the big initiatives to really start that process is we were still struggling as a community a little bit as we were growing, as you mentioned earlier, and trying to keep up with that process, right? So I told the board, we really need to come up with a economic development plan for the community and move forward with that. The administrator decided he was going to leave. And I applied for that position, and was lucky enough to get that position, and kind of that's where I am here today. So from school till now, it's been a journey.
I love it. Okay, let's go back to the beginning and unpack a little bit. I love that you said, you're growing up in this town, and when you're growing up, I think it's under 2,000 people, right?
Oh yeah, right, 1,200.
Yeah, 1,200 people, and I grew up in a town of basically, I think Sylvana has 100 people in it right now. 99, I think was the last time I looked at the old Wikipedia. But again, it's just farm town, right? But everyone knows each other. The cafe, like I was called Shirley's grandkid and Mark's son more than I was ever called by my name, right? I mean, everyone knows everybody, and like you said, oftentimes sports was basically childcare for me. I played year round. I love sports, but it was more because my parents both worked, or like, you gotta be involved in something. You can't just sit at home. And so, I resonate with that. And both my dad and his brother were volunteer firefighters, just like, you're called upon to serve the community. And so I resonate there with some things growing up that seemed your path. And yet one of the things I want to highlight is either whether it was volunteer firefighting that gave you the experience that made you say, hey, maybe this is a career. And then it was the architecture thing. And both those things, it seems, I want you to tell me what you sense about this. You had experiences in both those. And those led you. Now the other one opened up and had some other opportunities there for work. But it's one of the things I want to encourage young people is go do experience. Don't just think about it. And I think that's the detriment is we think a lot about it, and we're kind of, we make a lot of assumptions. We live between our ears instead of going out and actually seeing, is this something that you like? Go, there's no failure in trying something and go, oh, I don't like this. It's not a good fit. And it just seems like that's your story is you put yourself out there, and then those relationships opened up doors that you walk through. And there was a lot of variety there up until 2006 in the city of Dupair. Talk about that and just experience and trying to find your path.
Yeah. So, following that path, you nailed it. When you said you got to get out and experience it, right? Like at a very young age, I was working jobs up all over the place, from milking cows to baling hay on the farm side, right? To my grandpa had a milk hauling company. So working on trucks. There was a lot of friends, like you said, that had that, from the community, everybody. So you were, helping, the dad that was the mason, you were helping the guy that was pouring the concrete, like doing all those things, right? And my wife and I have three beautiful kids. My oldest daughter is a freshman in college, and last year, in junior year, so again, trying to figure out what she wants to do. And again, same thing, from broadcasting to maybe nursing. And she ended up with speech pathology and audiology is what she's going for. But Same thing. In today's world, it's so amazing. Like I think we had some opportunity when we were younger, but right now with the talent pipeline the way it is, like everybody's willing to bring you in. I mean, there's internships, there's summer jobs that are available. There's just so many opportunities, and by all means, that's what shaped me. Like being on the fire department helped say, yes, this is what it was. And even as I was going for architecture, it was like, is firefighting really what I want to be? And I was I was going to school for that as well. I got a firefighting degree from NWTC and or Fox Valley Tech, I should say, up here in Appleton. I started going. I got my EMT license because I seen a need in the community for more first responders and paramedics. And then as I'm kind of applying for some of those jobs while I'm doing some of the construction stuff, um, it, like the standard was there, right? Like someone applied for a fireman job. There would be one fireman position open up somewhere in our area, and 300 people would apply for it. Right at that time, it was just like, oh my gosh! And the standards kept changing. It was like you needed more experience, you needed more time. But and even then, there wasn't the opportunity to go job shadow. Now, kids have so much opportunity. Again, whether it's ride-alongs at the fire department, the police department. I know we offer a lot of that in our community. To constructions, the trades are always willing to bring people in. So yeah, you nailed it right on the head there, Seth. It's get out there, experience some of the things, and you never know what piques you. Honestly, government was probably one of the last things on my mind to ever get into for a career.
Well, that exactly. It is interesting because you said your dad, served
Yeah.
is the board council kind of thing that they had there. What was that? Did you obviously even fire? It's interesting. I can't remember who. I think it was Jesse actually. Ties. We were talking about how you might think about fire, you might think about police, but you don't. Sometimes you don't even know that that's connected to really the city in a part of municipality. Did you think about that? And even though you had your dad kind of involved, what did you actually know about local government, and why did you think that wasn't really on the radar as a possibility?
Well, truly, for especially my younger, before I'd say high school and whatnot. Really, I thought it was just, um, he went to enough of the board meetings and all those different things, right? But for me, it was the thankless job, right? Like, no one ever called and told them, "Hey, Ted, great job," right? It was, my road is bad. Why is my snow plowing? Like, what's going on at the park? Like all these things. It was nonstop, and he was just the board member. He wasn't even the administrator, right? Our little community didn't have an administrator for many of the years that I was younger, ran by just the board and the village president, and they did a good job, but nothing really. And that's a funny thing about local government. Now that I'm in it and trying to enhance that talent pipeline, there's so many opportunities in local government. But many of us, as I talk to colleagues and we work through things, right? There's very few of us that were dead set that I want to be an administrator someday or I want to get into local government, right? Most of us fell into that path through something else.
That is the predominant story of the hundreds of people I've interviewed on the podcast, which is so interesting, which is why I'm so passionate about how do we both do two things. How do we get young people to see it as a possibility of a career? Because in light of your story, there's so many different areas and aspects
Mhm.
that can be of interest. But how do we also get just our residents to appreciate the things that we take for granted? Because I'm telling you, if your water ain't flowing and your sewer ain't working and your trash ain't being picked up, again, that's what your dad faced. It's highway to hell. It is like, what is going on here? So it's so interesting to me that the very things that we can't live without, the essential services, we also don't really we don't seem to be very grateful for. And so how I want to try to change that because it is such powerful missional work.
Yeah, I would say in the village where it's not just communication and transparency, right? Like no one really knows, right? They're going to complain that their taxes are too high. They're going to complain their snow isn't plowed fast enough. All the things, right, that are there. But when like our story, so the village of Wrightstown, we have 16 total employees in the village of Wrightstown. That's my public works, utilities, full-time police department, and then my admin staff here. 16 folks. Um, and you start telling that story, right? And people see like all these events happening. They see all the snow getting plowed right away. They see all the good things, and they're like, these smokes, right? Where they wouldn't even know. They'd have been complaining where, some of the aspect of what you're doing and truly celebrating the successes of your team, right? I think that's another big thing. Like people don't see um all the success. For a lot of reasons, taxes up. So they think you're all super high paid, people that don't do much, right? Just drive around in a truck or sit in your office. But when you're out there and engaged, that is huge. And I think you get the buy-in and people really understand what's going on. And that's something that my group does. One thing we did, I don't like reviews too much, right? Like I hate scoring people like year one, year four, and an end of year review as they've always been done traditionally, right? Like if you don't know that you have things that you can be coached on until the end of the year, or you don't know that you're a good employer, no one's told you that until the end of the year, there's something wrong, right? Like if you're a great employee, you should know it every day. If you're an employee that needs some coaching, you should also know that every day, right? And be given the opportunities. So one thing we did as I was trying to work through that process on what's the best fit for Wrightstown was I made everybody pick 3 goals. One was a personal goal, one was a team goal, and then a community goal. And the personal goal was anywhere from, I want to read more, I want to spend more time with my family, I want to lose some weight, whatever. Show up to work on time, right? Perfect, right? Team goals were anything from potlucks to efficiencies to different things that we can grow in the community. And then community event side of things was anything from increased services to events. And truly what came out of it is some increased services, some more efficiencies, better team bonding. And then we created a bunch of different events that almost all communities have, but Wrightstown never did. So we have, music in the park and movies in the park and fall fest and, more parades and all the different things, right? And all of it was done on volunteer time from my staff. Like, and I bring that message out and tell everybody, and they're like, "No way! How did you get all those?" I'm like, "Yeah, they didn't use any of your tax dollars. They fundraised. They found donors. They, did this outside their own work." And they're like, "How can you do that?" But now every day, the public works guys are going out and they're saying, "Hey, you guys are doing amazing, right?" And not complaining. And coffee with the police department does coffee with the cop. And people are just praising him and hearing all the things. Right before it was, you guys are costing us so much money. The reason why our taxes are up, why you got a new squad car, like all these things, right? And just that overall communication and allowing the team to be represented, respected, and be part of the community. That gets past a lot of that. But let me get wrong. We don't have all fans in the community yet. There's still a few of them.
There's something genuinely exciting happening in local government right now. I'm seeing cities and counties use artificial intelligence in some genuinely impressive ways, both inside their organizations and out in their communities. What stands out is how practical these tools have become. It's less about headlines and it's more about really helping people do their jobs with a little more ease and a bit more focus. And that's what I appreciate about Tyler Technologies and their unique approach to AI. They're helping organizations like yours remove friction, taking repetitive, time-draining tasks off your staff plates, improving how residents engage with their local government, and giving teams more space to focus on the work only humans can and should be doing. There's no hype. There's no shortcuts. It's just helpful solutions built for the realities of local government. If you're headed to the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, I want to encourage you to take a few minutes to connect with the Tyler team and hear real examples from counties across the country using AI in helpful, practical ways. If you're not heading to DC, you can explore Tyler's free plain language AI resources at tylertech.com/winter. That's tylertech.com/winter. Again, free downloads, free tools, just amazing insights to help you truly understand artificial intelligence in a way that's practical and helpful for your specific local government context. tylertech.com/winter. Now, back to the conversation. Always. You said a bunch of things that I want to highlight. First is just, it's just always amazing how many hats are worn by local government employees, leaders, really any level, but especially the cities under 5,000, 10,000, even 15,000, but 5,000. I was just in Illinois for the ILCMA Winter Conference and spent some time with Bill Wagner, Arcola, who's one of my favorite people in the world. And this guy, a town of under 3,000. And this guy's just, he's wearing all the hats and doing all that. They've been without a public works director for almost a year. I think they just hired one, and he's just carrying it all. And people just don't realize that. I think I have empathy and sympathy because I was a pastor. And when you're a pastor, especially of small churches, you have to wear every hat. And yet at the same time, people think, they're like, oh, what do you do all week? I mean, I see you preach on Sunday, but what do you just sit in your office and pray all week? And it's like, do you understand? Like, I have to give a different keynote every week. Can you imagine putting together a compelling keynote that doesn't make people fall asleep, that actually engages? And that's outside of all the counseling that you do, all of the, just the facility, who do you think is the janitor here?
Mhm.
Who do you think is and people just have no idea of all the hats. And then, like you say, if you do a festival or something that's going on, it's not like you just got staff sitting around twiddling your thumbs. You got to recruit volunteers. I always say a small church, you do not understand the work it takes, because it's not like you can just pay people. You have to recruit. Everything that happens is volunteer, from the music to the childcare, and that is a pull to get people to do that week after week after week. So I feel some commonality, I think, with especially local government leaders who, again, will complain when the snow isn't plowed, but we're not throwing parades when it all works because we just take it for granted. So it's an incredible work. And so you spend you graduate in the 90s. You spend kind of a decade then in public sector, is last year utilities, kind of, or in the private sector, I should say, doing this work. And then the city of Dupere calls. And so this is the first time you're actually going to be employed by a municipality. What was that like? I always think it's interesting first to encourage young people, and not even just young, but anyone of any age, like, especially nowadays, to work for one place is almost like that is a bygone era, right? Where you'd start at the factory and work there till you died. We change. And even sectors now, private sector to public sector. What was it like coming on and actually working for a municipality after a decade of, the other work that you did? What was that like?
Yeah, it was different. Definitely, I'll say there were different paces, right? The private sector where I was at, every job was on a deadline. Things were there. In some aspects, the public sector wasn't that way, but you get on something like a water main break, like it's all hands on deck, right? And you're there doing things. But it was definitely different. But the thing that I saw the most in the public sector was from private. In the private world, I'll say there's just a little more competition from the ground up, right? Like everybody was trying to move to the next level, get the next pay grade. And even between companies, there was cutthroat between companies and different things. Once I got into the public sector, it wasn't that. Like there's people that had higher aspirations, but there was really good mentors. I was lucky in the city to peer, as well as in Wrightstown. Just great mentors, saying, you should try this, you should do that, trying to help you learn as much as you can learn. Where sometimes I was a little more cutthroat in the private sector, because they didn't want to teach you too much because they didn't want you taking their job
That's right.
or getting the raise before you did, right? So that was here, and truly, in De Pere, that again, I learned a lot there, from the director of public works to all of the above that were there, supervisors and whatnot, and learned a lot about a lot of different things. I was very inquisitive, so even though I was in the dump truck some days and or garbage truck and doing or plowing snow, like it was very easy to talk to the wastewater guys or the water guys and kind of ask them like, hey, what do you guys do? How does that work? And it was nice where I could move around and transition a little bit and see what each department was doing and see if this truly was a field that I want to get into. Um, and then in the public sector, that's one thing I'll say as I got, I'm big about being part of an organization and being part of a community. So when I got in some of the professional organizations, as I started getting into the water, wastewater side of the world, and again, same thing, see the passion that some of these people have, knowing that it doesn't matter, right? If the utility is making more money, you're not getting a raise necessarily because of that, right? It's not a commission based. If you get cleaner water, or you're doing something better, right? Like most of the time people are patting you on the back, right? And all those different things. But they're just so passionate about it, saying and taking so much pride in the work they do, and keeping our community safe and the environment safe. That's what hooked me on government. It was just truly the network of people.
It is such a missional work. And even if there's not a parade thrown for you, that the work you're doing is essential. And it's vital to not only the present, but the future generations, future life. And I think it's just incredible work. So here you are in that city. Again, the city of Dupere is 5 miles south of Green Bay. So it's a part of the big metro area. It's about 25,000 people. So this is, again, substantially bigger than Wrightstown, where you grew up. And where you're about to head when you take the job in 2008. And again, just to remind people, if you're listening to this and you were born yesterday, 2008's the economic, the housing, fallout. And so it is kind of a time that budgets were, cities, the cities always, municipalities are always nervous about budget, right? And so all it takes, it doesn't even matter if it's reality. Sometimes it's just like the world's falling apart. What do we have to do? There can be a lot of anxiety in that. One of the things you become the wastewater operator. That sounds like it's one of the things I think that could be it's both it's the dichotomy. It's great that's a fancy title. Well, I mean, you're an operator, like you're the person. But I wonder, like, if you're young and you hear a wastewater operator, I would automatically disqualify myself in seconds. Like, I don't know anything about wastewater. Like, why would I even apply for this? And that's kind of your story. You apply for the director of public works, you apply for the village administrator, and you're even told, like, you're not even going to make it, and yet you do it. I want to dive into that later, but talk about that position. Sounds like, and you've mentioned there's training, I think that's the thing, a municipality, there's really no degree you can get in your undergrad, even in a master's and MPA, that's going to really prepare you for the work of local government. Like, it is expensive. That's why these organizations, networks, training, the certifications are important, because you'll always have to take that. So talk about when you start working, and this is interesting too, you're going to go back to, again, your hometown. What was it like starting to work for your hometown? And what was that like? Were you living there? Did you have to move back? What was that whole experience like coming back?
Yeah, pretty much the whole time. I bought property in Wrightstown at a fairly young age, just because as I was working, doing some of the construction and whatnot, it was, I didn't want Uncle Sam taking all my profits. So it was buy some property, find some ways to get some tax write-offs, right? So I bought a house in Wrightstown as a young single guy. That kind of what kept me and my wife here. When I took the job in Wrightstown, obviously everyone that was working here was pretty local to Wrightstown at that time. Everyone knew my name, and that was either good or bad, right? Whether they liked my family or didn't like my family. And there was also expectations, I guess, that I put on myself, right? Like, you gotta do a good job because everybody knows you. So it's not just the new guy, right? They're gonna say, "What the heck's wrong with that Travis Coenen guy?" And in a small town, as growing up, like, they're not going to be afraid to tell you if you do something wrong, because they know you do it, right? And they're going to find you at church, in the restaurant, in the grocery store, and all the above, right? But there was also, the pride in working in your hometown, that, man, if I could really make some of this better or do some of these things, it was great. And to your point, wastewater wise, and even, all the different hats, all the different hats that we wear, in these spots. Wastewater definitely doesn't sound like a sexy position, right? Like, who wants to deal with what the stuff down the toilet goes to, right? Or where you want to do it. And trust me, there's jobs that are unsexy in the wastewater field. And you get dirty, and you gotta clean up. But when you look at, like, we worked in a lab, we had our own lab and our wastewater plant to do some of the things. And while you're testing some of that, obviously you're testing what they call influent, which is the stuff that's coming into the plant, right? And a mix of everything that goes down everybody's drain. And then on the other side, there's a test for what's leaving your plant, right? And you're looking at a jar, which you can imagine what it looks like when it comes in, right? And then you look at the vial on the other side, and it looks like you could drink it. It's so crystal clear, right? And you're looking at all the different, especially in Wisconsin, a lot of the country has about the DNR in Wisconsin and have super strict, truly sometimes the effluent water limitations on different elements are almost lower than what they have to be in some of the drinking water side. And uh, like when you look at the Fox River we're on, it's a awesome river that we discharge to. Um, but the water we're putting in is 100 times, maybe even a million times cleaner than what it is there, right? And you're like, I'm doing good things, right? Like I'm keeping the toilets flushing, I'm providing services, I'm doing all those things, and I'm also helping the environment, right? Like I'm making sure that the water we're kicking out of this plant is the best that it can be. So it's again in that aspect, a lot of government jobs, especially the wastewater and utility side, aren't seen by a lot of young people as I want to jump into that job. But we do bring young folks in, either from the technical schools or high school. And again, just on one thing that I talked about, like, here's what's coming in, here's what's going out. And they're like, how do you guys get it that clean? Like, how long does it stay in your plant? And you're like, well, in 6 days, it comes in and goes out. And this is what it looks like. And, because of the proper management and designs, this stuff can happen. And it's so cool, right? Especially
It
for
is
people that
so
are maybe
cool.
thinking like the environmental, so, something on the environmental side, right? Or,
Well, that's what I was just going to say. It's actually it's not surprising now, but it was surprising early on how many of the people I've interviewed went to school for environmental studies and then ended up in local government. And again, they didn't know that was, but it's like this, if you want to really be hands on to environmental work for a municipality that is having to, like you say, clean up water, do parks and recreation, figure out how do we maintain green space. I mean, that is, instead of going out and doing some, policy stuff that'll never be implemented, go work in the actual place that's actually going to make a difference. Like you say, thousands of gallons, I'm sure hundreds of thousands of gallons flowing through that you are putting back into rivers and whatnot, way cleaner than it's ever been upon entry. So this is the impactful work of real work, of environmental or whatever that looks like, engineering, etc. Like you are doing the real, not just thinking about the work, you are implementing it. That's why I love local gov. So you serve in that role for a handful of years, and then you mentioned you become the director of public works. And at that same time, you go back to college and you're doing an AA for that. Talk about that, because I think that's also encouraging too, to just say, I love that you're just a learner and that you're willing to go, hey, I want to be good at this role. How can I supplement my learning, my education to make sure that I'm well? What did you have? Did you feel like you had to go back, or what spurred that?
I didn't really feel like I had to go back to some of our earlier conversation. I just saw, like, I had a lot of construction experience in a lot of aspects, right? So one thing that I saw on our projects was either the right information wasn't given to engineers or the right expectations weren't given there. And then um, just some challenges on inspection, right? Like, we try saving money on inspection, so we do it ourselves, but the guys didn't really know what they were looking at. So I had a lot of that experience, but I want to enhance that. So I wanted to make sure that I did some of the testing work that's done on all the different products that are in part of infrastructure. I want to know how designs work. I wanted to just enhance my skills in on the engineering side. So that was there because, again, I saw things in the past where there was loopholes, right? And I think, again, not really to blame anybody, but I don't think the right resources were put in place to really have success. And I saw a lot of things, especially as I got into wastewater, that we could be doing better, right? Like, we're stormwater wise, being a small community, we're an unregulated community, right? But I said we need to start working on our stormwater treatment. We need to start working on enhanced wastewater stuff, like all the different pieces. And, with that, I needed more connections. I needed more knowledge, because as a small community, as you alluded to, was like we couldn't just hire everyone to do everything, right? Like, we had to do some of the groundwork ourselves. We had to investigate some of the things because it just cost way too much money if you just said, create this project for me, right? And they had to start from scratch. And then it was really finding the efficiencies, as I spoke earlier in the presentation, about trying to make our utilities and our community sustainable. So it was really creating those efficiencies, finding revenues, um, and I think all of that, as I got so passionate because of the water and wastewater side, helped me in that director of public works position. And I am always a learner. I want to be successful. I want to give my 110% every day as I go on. And I also want to be the mentor to folks. I want to be able to provide those resources and the reason why. One thing that always bothered me as I grew up is, you know, that's just, we've always done it that way, right? Or just because. And if I had a question, it was like, well, why? Like, and then I'd have to go investigate, like, why is he telling me this? And it's like, well, maybe he doesn't know, right? Because I'd find information saying that maybe I was right, or find the information I needed, the person didn't know, or maybe again, it was someone having their thumb on top of them saying, we're not cheating. That's the way we did it.
You alluded to when your director of public works that the village administrator had some issues, and so you kind of stepped in, were doing, carrying both roles there. When was it that because you and I say this because when you finish the AA, you go right into a public administration BA at the University of Wisconsin Green Bay there. Did you do that because you thought, I want to become a village administrator? When did that kind of become on the radar? Was it when you kind of were carrying both roles? Was it before that? Give us a little insight into that.
Yeah, as I took the engineering stuff and was doing director of public works, I kind of thought about that to a certain point on what is my next step? Or am I going to be a director of public works forever, or am I going to look for higher aspirations? And working through a lot of communities, a lot of people were seeing a lot of the great things we were doing in our utilities, asking a lot of questions how we were doing it. And, I was getting comments from folks on, you should be a director at a bigger community. You should really be the administrator, right? All those things. And then when, the administrator and his wife were going through their life challenges, I was really doing both. And back to the dual hat role. I remember there was a tornado that came through Wrightstown, and it was more of a straight line winds or tornadoes. We had some touchdown, but to the different hats, I started out going off to the fire call, so I had my fire hat on, right, and EMS side. Then I got in a payloader for the public works department and started moving trees off the road so we could actually get down places. Then I came back to Village Hall, basically got my notebook and laptop, and starting doing documentation for disaster funding, right? And all the different things that had to go with that, trying to figure out where funding was coming from. Power was out, so I was getting refrigerated trailer units in the parking lot so people could bring their perishables here and keep them frozen and keep them cold. Back to a street sweeper, back to the wastewater plant, helping wastewater operators drag generators around to lift stations, all those things, right? And then coming back when things settle down again and doing more of that documentation, more of those things. And, at that point, was kind of where I said, I can do this. Like we can do this. And then the next factor in that case that really made me say that public administration is where I want to go in an administrator position is, as I talked earlier, we had to kick off some development aspects, right? So working with my board, which is amazing, has been amazing in my tenure here, almost 20 years now, was, we got to kick off a process that makes sense and that's efficient for development, right? Like some people will say they'll put a plan together in certain communities and it takes them 2 years to get it through the group, right? We came up with a process that basically all the expectations of the board and the community through public hearing and information was basically put onto a piece of paper. And when development come to us, the expectations are there in a form of a checklist. And truly, because of that, if a good development with all their ducks in a row come to us, they can be through our process in less than a month and a half, 2 months. From start to finish, again, if they have their ducks in a row and they know our expectations. And that truly has been super successful. You talked about that community where I grew up being, 1,000, 1,200 people, and now over 4,000. When I started the administrator position and doing it interim while the administrator was out, our equalized value was roughly about $189 million. Now we're just about to $750 million in a 10-year period. We brought in, 200 to 300 homes in that time frame, a ton of multifamily. They had some diversity condos. We're working on a lot of affordable housing, a lot of industry. We brought almost 2,000 jobs in that 10 years to a small little community. Um, and just that is what has kept me going and keeps going for education. I mean, there's even a point in mind, right? I've been an administrator now for quite a few years and still thinking, that I want to go back to get my master's just to enhance that even more. But sometimes there's the question is when you have wife and kids and all the hours we have now, are you just crazy or is that a good idea?
I want to take a quick moment to pause here because there's something I hear over and over again as I talk to local government leaders from across the country. The work can often feel heavy. The expectations are high, and most days it can feel like you're carrying all that weight alone. That's why I created the Municipal Leadership Development Circle, or what we call the MLDC. The MLDC is a community of local government leaders from across North America who are committed to growing together, supporting one another, and leading well in the middle of significant pressure, not just in theory, but in day-to-day practice. It's a place to think clearly, learn from others who truly understand your unique context and work, and to be reminded that you're not the only one navigating these unique challenges. If you're looking for connection, perspective, and a steady place to keep developing as a leader, I'd love for you to learn more. You can find details at haltingwinter.com/MLDC. That's haltingwinter.com/MLDC. Now, let's get back to the conversation. I resonate with that. I have multiple master's degrees because it's just I'm a curious person.
Yeah.
And I love the environment. And, I don't really care about the degree. I care about the environment where I can learn and grow and be challenged by others who are growing and have learned, and experience. I just think it's so important to continue to keep the blade sharp. And I want to highlight too, what you just said there. Uh, Many small cities, small towns can be tempted just to, again, both the motto of we'll just do it the way we've always done it, but also just reactive leadership where you'll just handle whatever comes your way. And like you say, oh, well, it's going to take a while. And that's not a way to grow. And you have had incredible growth. I mean, again, 1,200 people when you were growing up to over 4,000 now. And people might say, oh, it's still, a small place under 5,000. That is incredible growth. And people do not understand what it takes. Like you just said, it's not like you're just growing because Green Bay is growing and people are just moving out there. You've got industry, you've got jobs, you've got the whole entire thing
About making infrastructure.
The infrastructure. And I love what you said. You created a system and a process that helps then people come in and be through the process in 30, 60 days instead of just laboriously waiting. That's one of the problems of local government. Oh, well, you're in the pipeline. No one knows, what the actual structure is, what the timeline is. I think that just speaks to your leadership and you're operating at a higher level. And I love that. And I think that's where you can actually have a city that's flourishing, right? And so tell us about Wrightstown. Again, 4,000 plus. It's south of Green Bay, about 20 miles, 50 miles northeast, I think, from Appleton. So you're kind of in the middle there. Tell us about this unique place and about that growth. How do you, because I would imagine there's a lot of variables that we could dive into. A small place has a very, tight community, like you say. People kind of know what it is. There can be a lot of hesitation about growth. There can be a lot of like, oh no, who moved my cheese kind of thing. Tell us about Wrightstown and what that's been like to now be the administrator for a decade. 2016, you became the village administrator. What's been going on in this season?
Yeah, truly, it's been great. And just, but it was transparency and communication. I got that community buy-in, right? Like we talked, we were going to get into, a development mode. We're going to try getting industry and jobs, try keeping, not being just the bedroom community, offering some great opportunities for our residents here. And then looking at that housing stock. And although there was some that, said, we don't want to grow, we want to stay the little community we are. There's others that recognize the struggles and what that could do. The little community is in, I'll say, the best spot in the state. We're right between Green Bay and Appleton, two big metros and Fond du Lac and whatnot. Truly half an hour, you can do anything you want from the village of Wrightstown. You can be sitting on Lake Michigan out by Manitowoc. You can be up in the North Woods. You can be, fishing, boating, skiing, all the things, right? Even close to us, there's a lot of amazing art and theater that you can head to and shows. We're not very far from Lambeau, so it's another great spot. People come in. And when you look for businesses, that was one of the selling points for our businesses. When you're looking at talent, recruitment, and even just overall customer base. We're 15 minutes from 2 international airports. The amount of talent around us, it's a great place to live. And then in the community, we also said we're going to grow sustainably, and we're going to try enhancing what we have. So we're going to focus on local business. We're going to focus on enhancing our areas, not necessarily just building new areas and forgetting about, say, our historic downtown and river district. Um, so as we've been doing that and growing and bringing new business in, revitalizing, we created grants to help with facade, like a lot of communities, and restoration grants. Um, it really has brought a lot to it. Like many people, as I've gone in many places, and they said, "Where are you, administrator?" I'm like, "Build your Wrightstown," and I'll tell them, we're right between Green Bay and Appleton on 41. And like, probably drove past. I'm like, probably did. you know, and now a lot of people know about us, a lot because of all the great things that are going on, whether it's how business and development friendly we are, or just a great community. Our school district is awesome. New folks that have moved in here from all over the country, just love it here. It's such a welcoming little community, and quaint. It's still got that small town feel, with being the small area that we are and the small population. Still a lot of people know everybody. A lot of the communities at the Friday night football games or the basketball games, right? And the community events, and people know people, and they're inviting to new folks coming in. So yeah, I think all of those just speak to Wrightstown and the amazing things that we're doing. And another thing we're even getting, as we go back to the environmental side, we're getting recognition on that as a small community. We're not even regulated on some things like stormwater, and we're doing a lot of collaboration with a lot of the environmental agencies just to make things better and clean up water and enhance riverfronts and stream restorations running through our community, all those different things. And our community's buying into that, even to the fact that where they're investing money sometime in other communities to make it better if we're getting those grants on board in communities. So
It's so cool. And maybe I want to talk about associations, but before, I think it's fitting because there seems to be a dichotomy, and I want you to speak to this, the dichotomy of you're seeing just how missional it is, right? These are the people you serve, the community you serve. You're building this thing not just for the present, but for future generations. And it can be incredibly rewarding to look and to see your handiwork, right? The actual work that you're doing. And yet you are in a small community where I'm sure you're known, where at the grocery store, people are telling you if they have potholes or if the snow's not picked up fast enough. I'm sure it's not it's that dichotomy of there's the reward, but there's also the weight of a role that really doesn't shut off, because not only does a city doesn't sleep, you also are a part of a small place where people can know you. What does that look like for you? How do you wrestle with it? And I'll just say again, you're still a firefighter. Like, you still are doing all these. It's not like you're just wearing one hat. You're wearing all the hats in this small community. So not only does work and volunteer work keeping you busy, but then even in the times where you're off, unless you're retreating in your basement, it can feel like you're still on. How do you do it? How do you stay motivated? How do you stay engaged in the other things of life to keep yourself healthy and flourishing?
yeah, work-life balance can be very tough in this industry, especially in these administrative positions, because there's a lot going on. And as you said, many of us take it as a mission. We have tons of responsibility and respect for our communities and our jobs. But I guess you just make time for it as you grow. When you first get into these positions, like a lot of people in new positions, you run around with your hair on fire, right? And you're answering the phone all the time. And then another thing is team, right? Like, I have just an amazing team that I have so much trust and respect for that, um, at some points when I first started, I was worrying about everything, right? And now I don't. Like, I don't have to call when I see a snowstorm going on. I know it's going to happen, right? I don't have to prepare people when something's happening weather wise, right? Like, I know they got it, and if they need me, they'll call me. So there's some of that, and some of that comes with team. It's still tough in a small community, as um, wear a lot of hats. There's a lot of things you're still thinking of, but it really comes down to team and just process systems. Putting those in, once you have those in place, it makes life balance a little easier. Now, don't get me wrong. I still get questions wherever I go, right? Someone's like, I don't want to bother you, while you're at dinner, but I just got a question on this, right? Or I have a problem with this. And I'll answer it, and that's something that, um, most people say I'm crazy, but, I put all my contact information all the time. And I'm not the guy that at 4 o'clock my phone shuts off. Don't get me wrong. There's some folks that sometimes I don't answer the phone for, right? But for the most part, I'll answer because truly I'd rather have them get the information than not. And when you talk about awards and people, really giving you recognition, that was something that happened just last year in the village. Um, in our high school, we have a alumni award. Basically, it's called the Hall of Fame Award for people that have graduated from Wrightstown at 20 years old that have great contributions to society. Right. Well, I got nominated last year. I got put on the Wall of Fame in high school for the contributions I've given to the school between, as you spoke to and kind of alluded to it earlier, between my all the different organizations and community event things that I do here, from coaching to events and administration. I was recognized by many as that. And the cool thing was, last year was my daughter's graduation, so the person that gets put on the Wall of Fame also gets to give the commencement speech. So I got to give the commencement speech for my daughter, and truly, the message resonates with your podcast because basically I told people you can be anything you want to be, right? You don't have to have it figured out today, and go out there, experience things, be part of things, talk to people. You know, you never know what's an opportunity until it's in front of you, and after everyone's like, yeah, Trev, like this is kind of the story of your life. Like I never expected you to be the administrator of our hometown.
It's so wild, right? The
Yep.
journey that we take, and what a cool opportunity. I'm sure that award, because it's hometown,
Yeah.
is so, you can win a lot of awards and a lot of recognition, but that one's got to be super special, especially with your. I can't imagine my daughter graduating, being able to do the commencement speak. How awesome would that be? I want to speak too, because you've mentioned it, about associations. Obviously, you're a part of Wisconsin City Management Association, which I'm about to come keynote. You mentioned the Wisconsin League of Cities. There's the ICMA, the national global organizations. Talk about, because I think that's one of the things that's so unique for this profession, is you are the village administrator in Wrightstown. There's no other. There's no other public works director. There's no other fire chief. And so if you don't have an association or network opportunities, you can be very alone and feel not just alone with training and ideas. How do you handle this? But just in the idea of, like you say, in a role that never shuts off, it's nice to have other people who get it, where you can get together and just kind of, you can just, even in a look, I think you can transmute, the weight between you, that responsibility. And so going to things like these associations, yes, there's training, there's great keynote speaking and workshops, but there's also just the conversations over dinner and over coffee that reminds you that you're not alone, that the grass isn't always greener, that you're doing great work. Talk about those different associations and just what they've meant to you in your journey and on your path.
Yeah. So all the associations that I've been part of, as you stated, I'm on the League of Municipalities board right now. WCMA, the Wisconsin City County Managers, ICLMA. I'm part of the American Public Works Association, right here, Wisconsin Rural Water Association, Wisconsin Wastewater Association, and I've been in committees and members, and truly the amazing thing is the people, and all the people that you've had on your podcast now, some of my colleagues, Jesse and Steve and Rebecca and Andy, they are amazing people. And again, that's one thing that's hooked me on public sector is everyone is out to help you, whether it's, you know, coming up with a job description or a resolution or a process, right? To, man, like I heard your board is really tough. Like, let's talk about that, right? Just working on mental health side of things and doing things. encouraging each other to, to either take higher aspirations or validate your ideas, um, has just been amazing. The groups have been amazing. And because of that, I've got so involved on WCMA. I think there may be only one committee I've never been on. I've been chair of committees. I'm on the conference committee, as you know. Getting you to come speak at our conference, which was amazing to have you. Um, but just super involved in a lot of those organizations, and truly just, again, to give a little payback, and also to help, again, get more people into the public sector, whether it's, again, any side of it, from, we're looking for clerks, we're looking for building inspectors, we're looking for people in our public works and parks. I mean, and one of the groups that I'm in with the WCMA is our talent recruitment committee, and we're really trying to create pipelines to talent for everywhere. And whether that's, finding talent with inside our organizations and growing them, or finding, stuff from K-12 to higher ed, and bringing those folks in, and being part of those job fairs and conferences. um, People don't know about local government, as you stated before. They don't know what it's about. And that's the amazing part when I go to those and talk to, whether it's high school kids or college kids. Yes, you can be an accountant, you can be a lawyer. As some of them tell me that, they're going for law, they're going for finance. Well, you can do that in local government, right? And they want to go for nursing. You can do that in local government, right? Maybe not all of those jobs are in the village of Wrightstown, but depending on the size of the organization, they may have all those jobs. And if not, say you live in Milwaukee or you live in Wrightstown, within, a certain amount of miles from your home, you can find that job anywhere. Communications, just, you name it. Local government's so diverse, and people just don't understand it, right? And at one of our conferences I went to, we asked them something, just keep saying things that you think happen in our community, right? And they'd be like, flush the toilet. Yeah, we help with that. The Christmas parade. Yeah, we help with that. Right. And they're just like, is there anything that local government isn't involved in the community? And we're like, not really.
Every aspect. That's why my aim, I'm working on a huge project right now to try to create an environment where we can go into high schools, go into even colleges, and do a kind of an assembly type experience where they can see all these elements that impact their everyday life. And I totally believe I can go in and say, whatever you're interested, if you're interested in science, if you're interested in how things work, engineering, Lincoln Logs, whatever you play with, whatever you experience, you want to be a hero, police and fire. I don't think there's one area of interest. Law, how many, city attorneys, every area, HR, etc. We can find a place for you, and we need you. And this is, like you say, it's missional work, because the work, that's the issue. I think, I had a lot of friends, people that work for, there's nothing wrong with private industry. We all need, we need it all.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I think a lot of people realize that you can kind of just be a cog in a machine. And it's like, yeah, I'm working for some big Amazon, I'm getting a big paycheck, but humans were created for purpose. And yes, and it's not like I think city employees are paupers. Like, I think they're paid decently. And like you say, there's a lot of benefits there, especially if you have family, retirement, et cetera, things that actually are a little more, it's nice to have some solidity. And so I think that, how can we connect them? But I think that's the key, is how do we connect them to experiences where they can see it, where they can not just have to imagine it, they can actually experience it. And that's why internships, but think about that, like, cities are always looking for summer help. You have to have volunteers to run all the park stuff, all the, all the libraries, etc. My daughter just talked to me though. She's like, I think I want to be a librarian. And I'd like, it was just this moment where I'm just like, this is so amazing. I know librarians. Let's do it. But again, how many people think their library is connected to their city, county? And so, so many cool things. I just appreciate you. Your story, I think, is super encouraging. Not only because it's so cool to see you impacting your hometown. That's such a unique thing, and it's a rarity. But how cool is that, right? And even more missional. and yet it's still a challenge, right? It's not easy because, again, the work can be wearing so many hats. The work, it also feels, I'm sure, because it's so missional, but then the responsibility, that weight that what you do matters. And so you do have to be intentional with the whole work life. I say work life balance is BS. There's no such thing as work life balance. There's just intentionality.
Mhm.
And that's the danger in missional work, is that you can feel the weight of that work so much that then you sacrifice the other areas of your life. And that's where my mission is to help people like you stay healthy, stay involved, so you can leave a real impactful legacy, not just at work, but with your marriage, with your children, with the other realities that make you a great leader. And so just love what you're doing, Travis. Looking forward to meeting you and in person here next week. And anything else you'd have to encourage local leaders like you?
I just say get into the party. These local people working in local government are amazing, and don't be scared of it. Right? Like if you don't have your MPA going for you, right? Like find a spot, start working into it as you stated. Get that internship if you're young, even if you're in midlife and looking for something to do. Right? Like apply for some of them jobs. Give it that go getter attitude, because truly it's about mission and passion. And for most of us, if we see that, we're all willing to train you and do those things. So get out there, get involved in your community, and definitely think about us as an option. You won't find a better group to work with. That's for sure.
I love it. In fact, this is what I wanted to ask you. I keep thinking about it and forgetting. Let's end with this. You in your story, you apply to be the director of public works. You're told by the current village administrator you're not going to make it, and then you make it. You kind of face the same adversity when you put your name in the hat to become the village administrator. Tell us about what that would shut down a lot of people. And we're just, we get in between our ears, and it's easy to think negative assumptions instead of positive. How did you do it? What made you believe that you could do it?
Well, I just had, faith in myself. I knew I could do it. I knew I was doing a good job, and I could go there. And a lot like earlier in the story, right, where, there's 300 people applying for one firefighter job, right? Like I knew I might not get it, and it might not happen. The opportunities are a lot greater now in local government than ever, with some of the turnover happening, just with the retirements of some of the baby boomers and whatnot, and just opportunities of people moving. Get into it. Don't let, if you get one and it doesn't go your way, keep going, and truly go talk to local government, right? Like if you apply for a clerk's job and you don't get it, right? Go in and talk to them and say, why didn't I get it? They're gonna be a great group. They're not just gonna say, well, you're not inexperienced. They'll say, go get this degree, or go get that, or here's this opportunity. Come in and work as an election worker for us, volunteer, right? Like all the things, like local government wants you in no matter what. We're always fighting for the best talent, and sometimes there may be someone better than us, right? But just keep trying. And again, reach out to local government. And I've told all kinds of kids to do the same, and even some of our colleagues that I see that are, interns or analysts or whatnot. And I just see the fire in them, and I see them ready to take off. And I'm like, just go talk to the administrator in your community, go talk to wherever. And I think that helps get you through a lot of things, and will really, you'll be mentored more by folks in local government to help you find your path than anywhere else.
I love it. And I think it sums up the story of your life, is that you didn't get in your head and disqualify yourself. You took action, and you said yes to experience. And that's the thing. Keep learning, keep growing, keep looking for the opportunities, and don't disqualify yourself before you actually put your name forward and do the work. So love that. What an incredible story, Travis. Thanks for sharing your life, your leadership journey, and your insights with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Seth, for having you on your podcast. It's great. Look forward to seeing you next week.
The stories we share here on the HaltingWinter podcast remind us where government really lives, locally, right here in our cities, our counties, the communities that shape our everyday life. If today's conversation resonated with you, please subscribe and share the episode to help these stories reach others. I'm Seth Winterhalter. You can find me at HaltingWinter.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.